Thank you everyone for attending today. My name is Brad Feakes and I'm with the EstesGroup. And I'm here today with Jay Pearson of Century Business Solutions. And so I guess the context of this was I was playing a lot lately with my ERP customers in the areas of credit card functionality, credit card processing kind of being one of those functionalities that made its way to the cloud ahead of time, ahead of the rest of us. And coming from the ERP world, I've found several challenges in implementing credit card solutions, either whether it's with the native ERP systems or with their e-commerce extensions. So that said, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to bring in Jay from Century Business Solutions because Century's EBizCharge payment platform is one of those best of breed solutions that really stands out from many of the other solutions and from the solutions that vendors themselves tend to offer when they sell an ERP system and provide a credit card module without necessarily all the functionality that comes along. So thank you, Jay, for coming. How are you doing today?
I am doing well, and thank you for having me.
Awesome, awesome. So really wanted to keep this really open for our audience members. If anyone has any questions or would like to interject at any point with opinions, questions, or otherwise, please feel free to do that. And Jay, I'm just going to kind of put you in the hot seat, and I want to, you've been in the credit card industry for a long time and seen a lot of changes as surrounding technology platforms have changed, and seen how credit cards systems and platforms have had to adjust according to new and evolving needs. So I want to just talk about the place of credit card processing in the ERP world right now and get some of your takes on it. So that said, Century's been in the credit card business a long time. So what are some broad changes you've seen over the years with regard to credit card processing, maybe specifically credit card processing and its relationship with ERP?
Yeah. Like everything else, technology has changed greatly in the 15 years that we have been doing this. We are really integrated with, we're a credit card processing company, and then that's how we make our money. But really, we're a software development company, and we specialize in doing integration. So we're integrated with, on the front end of businesses, shopping carts, or maybe a CRM system, and then on the back end, or the middle end, or whatever it is, the ERPs. Probably the two biggest areas of change in the last 15 years. One is technology, of course. Technology continues to evolve, and we have to evolve with it. But the other thing is that is security, and security concerns have been. Everybody's heard the stories about, big companies like Marriott or Target being hacked, and the one piece of customer data that they have that every hacker would like is the credit card numbers.
Sure.
So, and the credit card data. So securing that, you can say you could defeat those intrusions into your system. But if you can just make it so it's impossible or so difficult to get it that it's not cost effective, then that kind of defeats it as well. So that's the biggest areas of change.
Sounds like a lot of areas, balancing security and usability. That seems like a perpetual challenge that I run in. Do you find that, do you find that credit card usage across, the general market is an increasing activity? Is it relatively stable? What do you see in terms of the usage numbers?
No, credit card usage is definitely on the rise. I mean, if you just think about how you daily did business 15 years ago, you went, let's just take a Saturday. You go out and you got some errands to do. You might have some cash in your wallet for buying things, and you might have checks and things like that. And I don't remember the last time I wrote a check. I don't remember. I very seldom carry cash with me. I mean, I go to buy a cup of coffee. I use a debit card or a credit card. The preponderance of rewards cards has made it so that people want to get their rewards. So you've got that angle as well. And then some of the technology that's changed in the business world are these again to kind of enhance the security is to use these virtual cards that can be targeted for a particular vendor or a particular project or all of those things, so that the spending and the if somebody did get that credit card number with that intent, they really couldn't use it anywhere because it's only valid at this one merchant or for this very definitive period of time. So all of those things, and just think about your daily life. You probably don't carry as much cash as you used to, and you probably use credit cards every day.
Yeah.
It's no different for business.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm actually on site with a customer that is paying for my travel exclusively through their credit card points. So that's kind of speaks to the very nature of the world that we're living in right now, where the normal dynamics that we've kind of grown accustomed to are shifting pretty consistently. So I guess the question then comes, when it comes to the ERP systems itself that you're integrating with, how conducive are they to having a third party like yourself come in and integrate? How open do they make their platforms? How easy are they to work with? Do you see a big variety of that? I'm trying to understand whether the ERP community sees best of breed systems like EBizCharge as something that's an enhancement or a competitor.
Yeah, that kind of is the $50,000 question. It really depends on the ERP. There's some ERPs that are very open to us and have dialogues with us, and they provide us environments for us to develop in. They keep us apprised of changes they're making in their system and let us update our system to meet it. And there's other ones that fight us tooth and nail every step of the way, maybe. And there's a wide range in between there. But there's, we do all of our development in-house. We don't farm any of it out to, a third-party shop in India or Pakistan or Serbia or anything like that. We do everything in-house. We hire our own developers. So we have a level of expertise that allows us to, to get the most out of what we're given or what we're allowed to do.
Right. Bypass those.
Sometimes it's a challenge, but I don't want to name which ones are good and which ones aren't, because I don't want to color anybody's opinion. But it can be a challenging part of the business. But we've managed to most of our integrations are very complete and full featured with things like email pay and things like that. Some need more work and some are pretty well completed, but and most of our integrations, we don't charge anything for the software. There's a few that we do that we have licensing requirements that we pass on, but most of them we don't charge for the software. We're just charging for the processing.
Oh, so it becomes a matter of usage. Nice. That I imagine that makes for customers a much easier way of getting in. Because for me, the biggest challenge quite often is the cost of configuration, and getting over that big hurdle seems to be one of the big ones. And it's interesting, I guess the reason I had that question about how ERP systems work in our world, third-party solutions are the norm. And we see, especially in distribution, companies tend to have just a plethora of different bolt-ons, integrated interface extensions at every level and at every variety. So understanding kind of how an ERP vendor actually reaches out to them might help understand from a best of breed developer what kind of challenges are ahead. And one interesting piece I see a lot of customers, and this again going back to the distribution world, where a customer will have both a credit card integration and then also an e-commerce system that requires a credit card integration. What kind of tendencies have you seen there? Have you seen companies integrate both at both levels or just one? What has been kind of the trend that you've seen?
Yeah, there are a lot of companies that integrate with both. Like for example, we might have a integration that uses, say, WooCommerce on the front end and Epicor on the back end of their business. And they might have a website that uses Woo or Magento, and we have an integration to those, so we can do the processing there. We're one piece of development work that we are working on very diligently, trying to get to a point where we can deploy is for those front end and back end businesses to be able to talk to each other through EBizCharge. So the example you give, or I just gave you with WooCommerce, you could have a transaction on your website in WooCommerce. It would get authorized, and that would turn into a sales order in Epicor, and then go through the normal workflow in Epicor to get captured and whatever your workflow is. That piece that where we are now, we built that into every one of our integrations, and now we're doing the piece where it connects, and we can make it work. We just haven't rolled it out because we are really, really, really going to make sure this is perfect. Because the worst thing you can do is roll something like this and have it break both the ERP and the e-commerce site at the same time. So we're really doing a ton of QA testing, a ton of regression testing, and that's just a big time and development resource that's eating up, and it's going to take a long time to get through that. With all of our integrations, that's to make it scalable, we have to make it so that no matter what you come to us with on the front end of your business or the back end, they all work. So it's pretty complicated project, but it is something we're working on very actively, and I think it's the next really big step we make.
Yeah, sounds like some exciting times there. I guess another question would be kind of going back to the ERP-based systems. Do you find that your development, do you find the bulk of your development spent on core product capabilities or vendor-specific integrations? How does that division kind of work its way out when you have to connect with so many different systems?
Yeah, there's not that many vendor specific features that we need to be integrated with, because there's a few. If it acts sort of like an e-commerce site or an order is placed there, then we might get involved in it somewhere. An example of that would be, if you've ever heard of ParTrap, that would be an example of one where we did some integration. But the integration level that we have to do there versus what we have to do on the ERP is far less, because all we're really doing on that is an authorization and capture. We're not, depending on how the merchant has it set up, we're not having to do all of the features that we add, like the email pay and the payment portal and all of those things, because those are already built into the ERP, and we're making that work together. Most of the development is on the ERP side. The development on the bolt-on side or the add-on side is minimal.
Okay. So one thing I've seen a trend in general has been the movement of ERP systems to the cloud. And I'm thinking here, one version of that, of course, would be the cloud hosted, where you have a separate server that is still carved out in a virtual environment. Another would be a more extreme version of cloud, is pure SaaS based cloud ERP. And at that level, access to the lower levels of the application database or the application server layers kind of go away, and you're just dealing with the API level. How has EBizCharge handled that shift? Was EBizCharge always working at that API level so that that change was relatively transparent, or did you find yourself having to update your code? I see a lot of third-party vendors that I talk with these days are kind of having multiple branches of their code. One is an on-premise version or a cloud hosted where it can sit on the application server or the database server and do its thing, and others work purely from the API level. What has been EBizCharge's experience there?
Yeah, it's again, that really depends on the ERP. If you've got something that is not cloud-based, then, and we're integrated to it at some kind of a level that is programming, but most of the cloud ones are using some kind of an API interface, and that's what we do. It's not really a decision that's driven at our level. It's just whatever is functional to get that integration into that ERP that people are using.
Gotcha. Fitting the capabilities of the system. That makes a lot of sense. So have you seen, so when I think about credit card processing, I normally think of it as the demand side, customers buying product or services from suppliers. What about the kind of background situation of purchasing? I've run into some cases where companies want to try to be able to pay in the system through a credit card and have orchestration done there. Have you seen any interest in the industry that, as it relates to kind of outbound credit card processing from the ERP customers?
Yeah, we get that question a lot. We don't do that. We are strictly on the AR side. There are a lot of firms in the AP side that do that very well. We've looked at partnering with somebody or white labeling with somebody, but I don't think it's our highest priority. We have enough to keep going with 24 ERPs and 25 shopping carts and CRMs and all of the other systems we go. So it's not a development resource that we've tasked to do that. But there's a lot of good firms on the AP side, and those products work really, really well. And they can do things like I talked about earlier, the virtual cards for security and things like that. That's not something we play in.
Mm-hmm. So another thing that I've seen on the terms side, when I talk to people in the finance areas, credit cards, some find it frustrating due to surcharges and user fees, one-time user fees and such, or what they call those convenience charges. Others prefer the credit card because of the ease of use and the simplicity that it drives downstream in their processes. And as such, I've seen a variety of terms that change differently now, given that EBizCharge works on the back end as it relates to the AR side. Have you seen a lot of creative terms coming out of the world as credit cards become increasingly in use?
I haven't really seen that. We added a couple of years ago a surcharging module, which can be turned on, turned off, and it's really smart. It uses the different. At the time, there were some states that didn't allow surcharging. I think now all 50 states do allow it. I think there was a federal decision that forced that. Yeah, we can surcharge, and merchants can surcharge. I think when we've seen surcharging used, we do see, especially on the consumer level, we see a drastic drop in credit card usage. Mm-hmm. you know, every merchant has to look at that issue a little differently. I think if you're a consumer based company and you want a surcharge and you see you have to say, is that surcharge, is that 3% surcharge I'm going to charge worth the sales I'm going to chase away from it, and things like that. And as a business, even in a B2B world, I think you have to kind of look at that, and you always have to look at what your customers are demanding. If you have customers that want to pay with credit card and you don't take credit cards, you know, there's a chance your customers are going to go somewhere else if that's an important enough issue to them.
Sure.
So, you know, the whole, you know, it's just trying to find. You have to find that balance to you know, conduct your business in a cost-effective manner and also, you know, meet your customers' needs. Nobody wants to lose money or spend more money than they have to, but the cost of credit card processing on a, you know, let's just say 3%, it may not be 3%, but let's just use that as an average, is, you know, is spending 3% the worth of the sale worth a $10,000 order? That's, I mean, that just, every business person has to answer that question.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Does it get more complicated? You mentioned the 50 states. That made me think of Canada, probably because that's my land of origin, though I don't say that very often. But with you know, the border being close and at least before COVID being pretty transparent, do you find a lot of cross-border purchasing? Does that increase challenges for transactional processes due to different country regulations and such?
It doesn't, not at the credit card level, it really doesn't affect us. I mean, we process in the US and Canada. So in the 50 US states, we can process in all the provinces in Canada. You know, there are different laws in the countries, but we've programmed all of that in.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't really affect us that much.
Gotcha. So moving to the implementation side of credit card integration, one of the challenges I've seen in the past has been testing. I find this hasn't been specific with EBiz. This has more been with the native modules that ERP systems tend to carry with them. Difficulty in running through reasonable tests to confirm functionality and confirm configuration. What does, when you're implementing EBiz with a customer, what is the testing process looking like to verify that all behavior is happening as intended?
Okay, so yeah, I mean, a typical installation with us takes less than an hour for any of our ERPs. Maybe there's 2 or 3 ERPs out there that we sell rarely integrations to that are a little more complicated than that, but most of them are really, really simple for us to install. So if we have we can have the staff in there, we can usually install and train in less than an hour. Part of that installation process we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, we want you to create a sales order. We're going to give you a credit card number to run a transaction on. And then we're going to actually look on our side to make sure that transaction came over correctly and everything is working before we get you off the phone. And you know, typically, like I said, less than an hour. We're pretty good at what we do, and we can usually get people trained. Now that being said, if a business environment maybe precluded us from getting all of the people that we needed to train in one room for 15 or 20 minutes that it took to train them, and it takes us several hours to do that because we have to go one by one, that's what we did. And it's just the cost of getting it in there. So we look at that as just the cost of doing it, and we do it, but it's very rare that we have to take more than an hour.
Right. Well, that's nice, because I was before our session reflecting on the challenges that I was seeing with my customers, and I kind of boiled it down in my mind at least to three things. One was configuration issues, and that was all the challenges in figuring out how to get all the working pieces set up, because in many I think probably that I'm speaking to native systems that have kind of native integrations that are dressed up as core modules. I find configuration, testing, and then working through functionality limitations as being one challenge, because many out of the box credit card integrations tend to have very limited capabilities in what they can offer. Can you tell me how eBiz has approached the functionality question? Because I understand your functionality tends to exceed that of just a out of the box module, kind of a simple integration. What areas has eBiz tried to go above and beyond to provide that extra functionality to bridge those gaps with customers?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I mean, the features that we have that we apply to almost all of the ERP integrations that we do, that include like a payment portal. A payment portal is a website that we set up for every merchant, branded for that merchant. It's designed to every company probably has a segment of customers that like to kind of self-manage their account, be able to go in there, pay their invoices, manage their credit cards on file, that kind of thing. They can do all of that in that payment portal. Some other customers might prefer to get their invoices via email and have a link on the invoice to pay. That's called email pay. We have features like request for payment method that allow you to eliminate the awkward conversation of give me your credit card over the phone. And then the person on the phone recording that credit card, you always have to worry about how they are recording that information. And is that PCI DSS compliant? Because while we are tokenizing all of that credit card information and holding that credit card information in our vault and absolving the merchant the merchant does not have to keep that credit card information in their ERP, that absolves them of everything but the common sense PCI DSS obligations of the merchant. And I always tell this story because it's humorous and sad at the same time. At one point in my life, I was doing some PCI DSS auditing for a consultant. And so I was going in and I would sit in a company and I would watch their processes, and I was observing this woman taking an order over the phone, and she wrote down the credit card number on a legal pad and the date and the number and then the order number and everything. And I asked her, I said, well, what do you do with that legal pad once you've done writing that information down? And she pulled out her drawer and said, oh, I have them all right here. She had like 12 legal pads of credit card information written down there. Well, that's not PCI DSS compliant, and that would be, if those got stolen, the merchant would be in really hot water. So this, I say, common sense. All of those features that we have are really bundled in. The security and tokenization, like I said, recurring payments, being able to do that very simply. And then we back that up with a really, really strong, robust reporting module with lots of options, lots of easy access for the merchant to get to their data. And we don't archive any data either. So we have merchants that have been with us for 12 and 15 years, and transactions that they ran 12 and 15 years ago would still be accessible in our system. Not that I know why, I can think of why you would have to go back that far, but if you did,
Right.
It's available to you.
Excellent. Excellent. So going back to that security question, what are some of the big changes that you've had to make over the years in terms of strategy to security strategy to get that functioning more efficiently and more securely? You mentioned tokenization as one option. What are some of the other things that normally happen to make that credit card process very robust and secure?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest one. Tokenization is a process of securing credit card data that I can't really tell you how we do it, but it just makes it so that it doesn't make, I knock on wood, I don't want to say it's impossible, but it makes it so difficult to get the credit card information in a cohesive form that people don't try. They don't really make attempts. And if they do make attempts, we can change the tokenization key in like 30 seconds, and we automatically can do it. So it's just, and it's seamless. So but the main feature of tokenization that's important at the merchant level or the consultant level is talking to a business owner about ERP there are a number of things that if you're going to host credit cards in your system, you must do, and you must be PCI DSS compliant or if not certified. The company that I ran before I worked for EBizCharge, we stored credit card data for over 5,000 customers in 66 countries, and our cost every year to maintain that security was over $200,000. It was a hefty line on the budget. But because you're not storing the credit cards in your system, and we're taking that off of your plate, and we're tokenizing it, you don't have to worry about that other than the common sense things with credit cards.
Excellent. All right. So wrapping up here, one
and I think
question.
Tokenization, right? Let me add one more thing on tokenization. There are right now the organization that kind of enforces credit card data security standards that's called PCI DSS. So when you hear me say PCI, that's what I'm talking about. PCI DSS, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards. Right now, they demand that us as a processor tokenizes credit cards. They haven't gone out yet to various ISVs and demanded they do that. But if I was a betting man, I would bet that you're going to see that in the not too distant future. We're just going to, if you're storing credit cards in your system, is going to be something that I think everybody's going to either have to tokenize that credit card data or move it off their system onto something that is.
Right. So you see that as kind of one big kind of macro trend coming up.
Exactly. Yeah.
Excellent. Well then, yeah. So one more kind of more general industry question. We work at Estes with primarily manufacturers and distributors, and we find that those two markets differ pretty significantly in terms of their business processes, their go-to-market strategies, and everything in between. Do you find any industry or even industry vertical differences in their use of credit cards, or is when it gets to a credit card, is that something that's pretty ubiquitous across different industries?
Yeah, it's not. It really kind of depends on the business. I mean, you know, for some businesses, for some manufacturers, where you might be, I think it's more common in the distribution area than it is manufacturers. Okay. Manufacturers often they're going to run a even if it's a special thing they're running, they're not going to gear up their plant and their machinery to run one-off items unless there's some kind of a small machine shop. So a big manufacturer is going to run bulk items that are often run, going to be large transactions that are going to be paid for, not by a credit card. It's more common in the distribution where you might be doing, smaller orders, and it really kind of depends on your business. Probably if you're a distributor and you have a website and you sell direct to the public, but you might also have stores. You might also have retailers that cover your product. Well, the retailers that buy a truckload of whatever are probably not going to pay you with a credit card, but those transactions that come through your website are, so you have to have different ways to take payments. We can also facilitate e-checks, or what's commonly called ACH through EBizCharge. So we can do that as well. The ACH is usually not as an expensive a transaction as far as charges go as credit card to the merchant, but it just really depends on your business, whatever your workflow is.
Excellent. That's
Really
interesting.
Sure.
Sure. Yeah, I imagine there's a big piece of what your customer base looks like and what they might be after. Well, so that said, Jay, want to thank you for your time today. Want to take a quick moment here while you're here to put a quick plug in for who you are and what we do?
Absolutely. So we are like I said, we're a software company. I've covered some of this, full featured. We'd love to take a swing at anybody on the call's business. You can reach out to me through Brad, or we would love to take a swing at your business. There's no obligation to look and see if you're currently doing credit card processing. You just send us 3 of your statements, and we will let you kick the tires and see what we can do, and if we can save you some money and add more functionality to your business, then that's what we're all about. And we would love that opportunity to work with anybody on the call. We've been around for 15 years. We've got 200,000 customers plus right now, and we work with 23 ERPs, including EstesGroup, Epicor. So we work with, that's one of the ones we work with. So we can process. A lot of times, you mentioned all the features. I won't go over those again. But a lot of times we do something really unique within an ERP that nobody else has done. I'll give you a couple of examples. In Epicor, we are the only solution that allows an Epicor user to store more than 1 credit card per customer. Sounds like a little thing, but it's one of the things that we solved for a customer, and now we apply that to everybody. In another ERP that we work with, Sage Intacct, we're the only one that there's a thing in Sage Intacct where you have to be an admin user in order to process payments. Well, that means you got to give everybody processing payments the keys to your entire system. And we solved that problem and developed a sub-user that doesn't need to have the keys to the system. So those are a couple examples. There's others that are out there that we've done. We're very customer responsive. We do what is, customer asks for something and we can do it, and it makes sense, and it's something that makes sense that we can turn around and apply to other customers. And as a benefit, we usually don't charge for that development. We do have some one-off development requests that we do charge for, but most of the time, the out-of-the-box product works really, really well.
Excellent. All right. Well, yes, to the anyone in the audience, if you have any questions about credit card functionality and how you might be able to cut down your credit card expenses, don't hesitate to follow up on the contact information included in this webinar. And Jay, wanted to thank you for the time today, and thank everyone in attendance. And I hope everyone has a very solid weekend. Thanks
Thank you,
again,
Brad.
Jay.
Thank you, everybody on the call.
You bet. Have a great weekend, Jay.
Bye-bye.